Start. All right. Can everyone see that clearly? Is that okay? All right. Thank you. So today, what we're going to be talking about is goal setting, remonetizing your business goals for the post-disaster era. When I talk about post-disaster, obviously a pandemic is a disaster situation, as we learned from history about over 100 years ago in 1918. And 100 years later, where we're going through another pandemic, currently the COVID pandemic, things happened back then that we learned from that we should be doing in our business now. So a lot of the things that you might hear, you're going to be, oh crap, I heard of that before. That's perfectly fine. But what we're going to do during today's webinar is actually go into a way to systemize how we do our goal setting based on the experiences that we all had as of last year and still into this year. So things have changed, obviously. Just by a show of hands, and this is why I like to see everyone, how many of you were negatively affected in your business because of COVID? Okay, I was wondering why the chamber didn't put their hand up, because I'm like, yeah, everyone got affected. Everyone got affected, even myself. You learn to change, you learn to adapt, and you learn to rethink your goals. And that's obviously important as to why we're here. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking this time, as a matter of fact. And we're going to go through this process. So I just want to say thank you to the Greater Blue Ridge Chamber of Commerce for trusting me and selecting me to do these webinars for the small business owners in the area. I have to admit, all of last year and actually again this year, I'm also doing a lot of different webinars on these particular issues and all these particular matters. So this is fun for me. I enjoy it because I get to talk to people. I get to show ideas and strategies in terms of how to grow your business. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Terry and Pauline for all the texts and the chats and the emails going back and forth and putting this thing together. So thank you for that. Um, so what is this Business Education and Resilience webinar series? This is a series. This is a 2-section series and split up in 2 different 12-part webinars. So the first section is to talk, well, the first 12, one webinar builds upon the other. So today's webinar is sort of like a stepping stone for next week's webinar. So one webinar builds upon each other. So whatever notes you have, whatever notes that you take, please hold on to them, because as you come to the next webinar, they're all linked. They're all interdependent in terms of what we do. So because the idea here is to build something at the end of webinar 12, and then we start over back in April. We start the new 12 webinar series again. So we definitely talk about goal setting, and then we definitely get into the weeds of your business, operational management of your business, the financial management, the business planning, the exiting of your business, the business strategy. So you always want to start with phase 1. Because of what we happened, because of the experiences of this pandemic, we want to reset and rethink and restart and repivot our businesses in certain ways. But I'm a believer in building things from a functional foundation. Always start with 1. To learn calculus, we have to learn addition. So to get to Cal 1, Cal 2, Cal 3, which we all love. I remember college, we all love calculus. So, yep, Wanda likes Wanda Rogers is smiling. So she's a math major, so she's smiling. So I could appreciate that. You want to start with step 1, and then you always want to grow your business. And that's the way we think about a business plan. That's the way we think about our goals and our vision and our mission. We start with the beginning, but we have the end in mind. This is why it's so important to show these 2 interdependencies in what we do for our businesses and how we move forward. Part of this 12 webinar series for this first section is you're definitely going to get some updates on for my federal government colleagues. I'm a former federal employee with the U.S. Department of Commerce. And I have a lot of friends and colleagues in the SBA, and I have a good buddy of mine who's going to be doing one of the webinars, and he's going to be talking about the Triple P and the EIDL. Just to let you know, the Triple P program is open again. The EIDL has been extended to the end of this year, so you guys can go ahead and apply for those things as a business owner. So please be aware of those particular issues. And again, we have a huge surprise July 15th, where we're going to have a pitch your business competition. This is strictly voluntary. We're going to send out the rules. of that particular Pitch Your Business competition. We would love to have as many business owners on that particular event. And of course, there's going to be a first prize winner. It's going to be, I have a wonderful surprise and a prize ready for you, but you got to be there to know what the prize is. So that's the incentive for being there. So if you want to win the wonderful prize, or even if you want to just be there and be an attendee in the crowd and listen to these businesses pitch their business, I urge you to attend. I definitely encourage it. It's going to be something pretty cool. I'm excited about it. So my webinar pitch to you today, my business pitch or my ask for you today is to do this one thing. That's all you have to do is one thing tonight, right now. I'm going to ask you to do certain things at the end of the webinar, but I want you to do this one thing. And the one thing I'd like for you to do is to sign up and return for all the webinars, okay? And bring a friend, bring a business owner friend. Tell your colleagues, share this information with your colleagues and your friends to say how great this information was and how great the webinars are, what you got out of it. But the idea here is to have as many people exposed to this information, because this is information that a lot of businesses can use and will use in the future. And we definitely don't want to keep it a secret. So do I have your commitment on that? Thumbs up, yes? Yep, thumbs up. Lisa didn't put a thumbs up, so we're gonna kick Lisa out of here for a minute. Okay. All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So this is what we're going to talk about over the next 7 to 8 hours. So everyone just hang on. I hope you have your dinner next to you ready. We're going to be here for a while. We're going to talk about goal setting and ways to monetize your business goals. So our agenda for tonight is, what is goal setting? Okay, the next thing that we're going to dive into is how to establish these goals. How do we establish these goals? How do we monetize our goals? And very important, ways of harmonizing these goals into our business lives. And again, next steps. So this is our agenda for tonight. And again, this is an interactive session. So if you have any questions, I'd like for you to, either put them in the chat, because Pauline is going to be monitoring the chat, so you guys can type in your questions. Or if you'd like, because I think we have, let's see, 9 participants here. So we can actually probably just have people unmuted, Pauline, if they'll have a question. We can unmute them and they can actually have an interactive session. So before we begin, Pauline, could you launch the polling question for me, please? There we go. So if you can just take your time and just answer these 3 questions for me. All right, we are waiting on 4 more people to answer the question. Actually, 3 more people should I be answering? Don't be shy. All right, it looks like everyone else isn't going to answer. We're waiting on 3 people. All right. All right, this is interesting. Thank you. We're almost at 100%. Again, this is your webinar, so the more people who answer, the more information we can share with each other, the better off we'll be. So okay, we have 7 out of 8 people who answered. That's fine. So let's hold on to that information for a minute, and let's go say no one above 60%. All right. Cool. Well, thank you for doing that. We can end the poll now, Pauline, and we'll get ready for the second one after. So, okay, here are the results. It's about 50-50, where everyone have set their goals out of everyone who answered. Have you written down your goals? Actually, it's no. Thank you for your honesty. It's about 60-40 percentage there. I appreciate that. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your goals? Okay, cool. So uh, the highest number that we see is a 6. So some people have rated their goals as high as 60% and as low as 10%. So cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's good to know. So what exactly is goal setting? What is a goal? A goal are certain, everyone has a vision where we want to be. We want to get to the end of a road. And well, before I continue, how many of you are business owners? And if you can also put in the chat, if you're a business owner, could you write in the chat the name of your company, what do you sell, and what is it that you do? That would be in your company name. That would be really helpful to know as I go through the webinar. That way, if I have something I can sort of pick on a certain business, I can actually tease that. I can highlight that particular business. So if you're a realtor, that's your business. Put it in there. So just go ahead and put it right in the chat as I continue. Your name, your business name, your name, and what is it that you sell? I would be interested in learning that.
The chat is
Mine is
disabled.
saying chat is disabled.
Oh, okay, Pauline, we can probably set that up on the side or something. Let's see. In any event, I'm going to continue. So, one of the things that we talk about in terms of example, what is a goal? A goal are sort of again, think of your vision, your long-term end result. So let's say, for example, if you want to climb Mount Everest, for example, that's your goal, is to get to the top of Mount Everest, right? That's your vision. Your goal are the intermediate steps to get to that vision. So step one would be probably training to run a marathon, because you have to build your lung capacity. Number two, it's pretty much, understanding the layout of where you have to go, planning your trek. That's a goal. That's a second goal. So learning would be a second goal, very specific. So the purpose of these goals and the reason for that is to get to your vision, okay? And that's exactly why we set these goals. It's to look at the puzzle pieces that sort of go into your puzzle that combined creates your vision, right? But at the same time, it's also about your personal achieving and your business achieving. You definitely want to have for the business owners who are here, you definitely want to have your personal goals and your business goals listed out and written. So you certainly want to work on that. So as you're sitting here right now in this webinar, in this workshop, and you have notepads and pen and paper, start thinking about some of the goals, start writing them down, okay? Start putting these things in a documented sense, all right? And the reason why is there's a Harvard study that says, everyone says about, oh, the 1%, the millionaires. Well, the common theme and the common things that these very successful individuals do globally is they actually write their goals down. They actually start off by writing them down and teasing them out, and then creating a path to get to those goals and achieve those goals. So it's always, it's always good to have these goals written down. We have an 80-20 and a 60-40 in terms of goals being documented. Let's get that to 100% by the end of the night. That's the goal here, or at least by the end of the 12 webinar series. So when we talk about goal setting, you certainly, as a business owner, you certainly want to have your personal goals listed out, as well as your business goals. And we'll get to that in a moment. And a really quick strategy in terms of building up your goals is create a winning feeling. How many of you, by a show of hands, how many of you in the room, how many of you in the Zoom have actually set out a goal and you didn't accomplish it and you felt really, really bad, or you felt like a failure? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all of us have. All of us has. Yeah, exactly. So here's a little trick, right? So it's a little business psychological trick that we probably know it, to be honest with you. I'm sure you've heard of this before, but you never realized it in its implementation. So what we do is you create a small goal. Create something very small. For example, this may sound kind of ridiculous, but I want to give you an extreme example. Let's just say you wake up every morning at 5:30 in the morning. Your first goal of the day should be to make a sandwich. Sounds silly, but that should be one of your first goals, is to take care of yourself. Make a sandwich, exercise, right? When you make that sandwich and you eat it and you enjoy it, you've just won your first goal for the day. So you create a psychological winning feeling. It's a winning emotion that you've accomplished something. Does that make sense to many of you? Yeah. Now think of the opposite. If you wake up at 5:30 in the morning and then you say, my goal for this morning is to run a marathon. Now, I'm not saying you can't, I'm not saying you will, but what if you ran that marathon and you only did 12 kilometers? You didn't do a marathon, right? This means yes, this means no. This means, okay. You didn't run the marathon, so you kind of feel as if I'm not successful, because a marathon's 24 kilometers round up, but you only did half of that. So psychologically, it shows up as a negative emotion because we see the cup as half empty. So always have that winning feeling in your goal. Start small and create those small winning feelings in your goals. Now, I'm not saying your sandwich is your goal. I'm just saying that's just an example of two extremes, a sandwich and a marathon. And you just have to bring those things a bit closer together so that you can actually start creating that development process for yourself to move forward in your goal setting. Okay. And these are simple strategies that I want you to connect to, so that when we move to the next webinar, you'll see how these things play in the implementation and daily execution of your business. So this is why we're starting here. So you want to have those goals to create that winning feeling. All right. So how do we establish our goals? What is this process? What is this thing that William is talking about in this webinar? So we certainly want to establish our goals, and we all heard of the SMART system. Anyone has not heard of the SMART system? So Terry, you never heard of the SMART system? All right. Okay, fine. So when you establish your goals, there's something very, it's a simple exercise. It's called just using a SMART strategy. It's one of the many different ways of goal setting, but the SMART system literally means SMART. It's an acronym. And SMART just means being very specific, clarity of goals, right? You want to be specific in your goal. Okay. For example, who has a goal here they would like to share? So we can just pick on someone. If you can raise your hand, we'll just unmute you, and then we can move forward. Or I'll just pick on Pauline. Terry has a goal. He like to. How do we unmute Terry? Okay. You got to unmute yourself.
Yep, I did. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. As president of the chamber, I've got a few more months left in the seat, and one of the specific goals that I have is to increase our membership by at least 5%.
There you go. Yeah. So that's an example of a specific goal. So, and that's actually an example of a SMART goal. But you want to be specific. You want to have clarity in your statement in terms of creating that goal. So Terry's the president of the chamber. It's a tough position, I can tell you. Just knowing, how the chamber works and just being in the community to build the capacity, especially during this COVID experience where, I can tell you, I worked with a lot of chambers from DC to Virginia and Maryland, and every chamber is having a challenge in terms of capacity, in terms of their membership numbers falling down. So to have that goal to increase by 5% is a very specific goal. So you want to have clarity of our goals. You also want to have something that's measurable. As Terry mentioned, he wants to increase the chamber by 5%. You can measure that. So if you have 100 members right now, I'm not saying you have 100, but if you have 100 members, or you have 100 of anything, 5% of that is just adding 5 people, right? So that's the measurable part of your goal establishment system. So your goal statement, again, specific, measurable, and that's how you define success. Once we hit 5 additional people, because we have 100, that's our base, guess what? We can measure that, and that's how we define the success of your goal. The accountability piece is also important, because when Terry said we, he didn't say I, he said we. That means that, Pauline and the other board members who are here, good luck. He's going to keep you guys accountable for bringing 5% of business owners into the folds of the chamber. So Terry's a hard guy to work with. He's strict and he's powerful, and he's a I'm just giving Terry a hard time. But that's the accountability piece. That's the accountability piece where Terry says Terry says, we got to get this done. And as a team, you work together, and that's the accountability part. You hold each other accountable to that growth number as long as you guys agree. The achievable part, achievable. Can we do this? Can you guys increase it by 5%? Is that something you can do? Can you do it? Yeah, exactly.
I think it's very achievable.
Yeah, it is achievable. Exactly. Can you achieve 1,000%?
It's a little bit tougher climb in this
Yeah.
environment. Given the environment, I think that's a little ambitious.
Yep. It's achievable because it's a number. We don't know. It's a percentage number. I know Wanda Rogers said she loves calculus, so 1,000% of anything, we don't know what that base number is. So from statistics, we can figure out what that is. Is it achievable? Sure. Why not? Now we go to the word realistic of the SMART. Now, is that realistic? As Terry mentioned, under this COVID pandemic that we are in, is it realistic to do that? Probably not, because of what I just mentioned about the analysis of all the chamber groups that are out there. I've worked with a lot of chambers in DC, again, as I mentioned, and they're having all the chambers. This is just across the U.S. are having a hard issue in terms of looking at those numbers. So even their goals have changed too. They've lowered some of their goals, and they've actually do different offerings in terms of looking at that as a strategy, Terry. So time sensitive. So Terry said by the end of his tenure, which is I think in August or July, August?
June.
Okay, June.
Yeah.
All right. So sometime in June. So it's time sensitive. So between the two J's, January and June, his goal is to increase it by 5%. So again, that's the process of establishing your goals. That's the process of, starting from, how do I climb Mount Everest? Okay, well, I have to do all these things. Okay, let's break it down into simple steps to get to the top of Mount Everest, which is your vision, actually. But the one thing that I always work with my clients on, and whenever I teach about on this particular section, I've always add the extra R. Okay, and the extra R for me, it means repeatable. If you can increase something by 5%, and you achieve that success, repeat it. We're business owners. If you can increase your revenue by 5%, how many of you would want to do that again next year? Okay, no one wants to do it again. All right, we got 2 people. All right, cool. So 2 people would like to do it again. So that's why some of your goals should be repeatable. Okay, that's why I always add the extra R in SMART goals. So if you can build your business to a 90% increase in revenue and sales, and I've seen this, I've actually seen 200 or 300% in a very short period of time with other businesses that I work with. Repeat it. It worked. Let's do it again because it was highly successful. Again, if your goal doesn't work, don't do it again. So just don't make the same mistake twice. So any questions on this? This would be pretty much straightforward. Any questions? Anyone has any questions or comments? Or would anyone here like to share their goal to the group? No one's daring enough. All right, well, I won't pick on you tonight then. All right, good. we got the chamber to stand up. Thank you, chamber. I appreciate that. All right.
That's what we do. We lead the way.
There you go. So how do we harmonize these goals? Okay, you guys can read the slide. I'll just discuss it. As business owners, okay, or positions of leadership, okay, we have Lisa, who's the executive director of the BIC. We have Pauline, who's the executive director of the chamber, who has to deal with people like Terry. I'm just going to pick on you guys. I'm sorry. As business owners or people in leadership, we have to harmonize our goals. And what do I mean by that? As a CEO of your business, whether you're a solopreneur or you have 100 employees, in the beginning and at certain stages of your business, you're pretty much the chief everything officer. I mean, it sounds like a cliche. And fortunately, it's not a cliche. When I started my business in 2013, I was a CEO. I did everything: marketing, sales, accounting, making phone calls, throwing out the trash, you name it. But over time, you have to change your hats. You have to take your hat off and give it to someone else and hire someone part-time, whatever, or full-time, and help and have that go. So we wear many hats. We do it because we're business owners, and we do it because that's just the name of the game. We have to get it done to survive. And this is your goal. So you never give up on your goals. So you want to make sure that you have clarity of your goals and you move forward. Now, what do I mean by harmonize? When you're in business, especially if you're 100% in business, a lot of what I tend to see is a lot of business owners have their personal goals and their business goals. They are they're one of the other. Okay. A lot of people start their business for personal reasons. They want more freedom. They don't like their boss. They want to do their own thing. They want to stand on their own 2 feet. That's not necessarily just a business goal. That's also a personal goal. So a lot of our personal goals marry into our business life. And as a business owner myself, with who I've owned a few companies, I can tell you that's 100% true. People, we start our businesses because there's something personal there, right? Call it an ego, call it your id, call it your super id. It doesn't matter. It's who you are, and we have to harmonize that, and we have to balance that out in some way. We I'll give you an example. I've heard the term work-life balance. Personally, this is just my opinion. I don't believe in work-life balance because to me, there's no such thing as work on one hand and then life on the other hand. To me, it's all life. If you're a business owner, that's your life. If you're a doctor, that's your life. If you're a school teacher, that's your life. It's all life. So how do you balance those things? You really don't. You just have to harmonize. You make one work with the other. That's the harmony. It's like a beautiful dance, with two people. How they move and how they flow together, and these two opposite things, and how they have a rhythm together. So is your business life. It's how you have your rhythm of your business and the rhythm of your life, and they go together. And how do you harmonize that so that they can coexist? It's a relationship, right? So those goals, really, you have to look at it like that's my business goal and that's my personal goal. But in reality, they go together. And especially with this COVID pandemic that we're under, trust me, a lot of our goals have changed. I can tell you a lot of sad stories, but I can tell you a lot of happy stories about how people have pivoted and switched at the very early onset of COVID, of the pandemic. Fortunately, some of us who've been keeping track of what was going on, we actually saw it occurring in December. We started, I actually started, and a few of my friends who are consultants and my business partners, we actually started revving up our businesses and the businesses that we work with to literally say, hey, this thing is coming. Let's be ready for it from a risk management perspective. So we had to change certain goals and change certain financial outlooks for these businesses for 2020. We had no idea it was gonna shut down until later in February, but at least we were doing things ahead of schedule to look at these things and say, okay, we have to pivot and change now. So that's sort of like the idea of harmonization of your goals. Anyone have any questions on that, or any comment on that? Or are we just going to keep moving on? All right. So again, how do we do this? Right. Once we've developed our goals, we've written out our goals, right? So everyone's going to write their goals tonight. I think I'd like to see that. I know I'm going to pick on Wanda. She's looking down, so I know she's writing her goals, definitely. And just keep writing your goals down. Even right now, just write your goals. It doesn't matter. Just write them. They're yours to take ownership of that. Just write them. And those are your goals. That's part of your homework anyway. So keep writing them. So the way we harmonize our goals, and I talked about the personal life and your business life, is, for example, I've spoken to many business owners. We all know business owners, and sometimes you ask people, you say, "Hey, why are you in business?" You go, "Well, I want to have my child go to college, or, I want to travel to another country." Well, under COVID, you probably have to do it virtually, but pre-COVID, well, maybe that may have been your goal, was to travel and to see things. All right. So what happens is you're a business owner. So what you do is you take that goal and you put a dollar value to it. So if you're in business and you say, okay, um, I'd like to have my child go to college, put a dollar price on it. What's the average cost of university right now? Can anyone tell me for like a 4-year college? Of just a regular, let's say a regular degree, not medical school, but just a regular 4-year degree. Does anyone have an idea?
Public or private?
Let's go with private.
Okay.
Just an average number. It's not going to be accurate. We're just putting
How
throwing a number
about
out there.
160,000?
Yeah, that sounds about right. 160,000. So what I would do is I would just round that up to 200,000. Let's just say it's 200,000, 50,000 a year, 50,000 a year for your college, for your child to go to college. So that's how you actually monetize your goal. You find out where do you want to send your child to college? Well, let's see what's in the high end of that. So you monetize your goal. You put a dollar value to your goal. So for your list that you're creating, okay, put a dollar value to your goal. And as a business owner, that's what you should be doing. If your goal is that your first goal should be creating a salary so that you can actually just keep paying the bills. Well, how much money do you need per year to keep your house warm and cool in the summer and warm in the winter, for example? So if that's $100,000 a year, then guess what? You monetize that goal. Okay, your salary should be $100,000 a year. You want to send your child to college? Your business will have to create $50,000 a year for the next 4 years. As Stephanie said, $160,000 private school, hey, great. Then it should be $40,000 a year or a certain amount per year. Then you go from there. So if you want to take your family on a vacation, and with the COVID pandemic that we're under, our goals will have to change, obviously. But it's also, well, now I have to drive to my destination because sometimes you don't feel comfortable in the airplane now, or you just want to, see America for what it is. And overseas travel has all these restrictions now, and they're probably not letting, each other come into each other's country for now. Then do a road trip. Okay, what is that road trip? Remember the SMART goal? What's the distance? How much gas do you need? Do you need hotel stay? Monetize that goal. Because when you have your final number, you build your business towards that number. So identify the investment amount of your goals. Okay. So some of your next steps is to set your goals. Okay. You write them down. And I know every one of you are going to write your goals down before the next webinar next week, because we're going to take these and we're going to create something different next time. Okay. So set your goals using the SMART system. Write them down. Very important. Create an accountability system or process, which means that share your goals with someone that you trust. Okay. Terry just trusted everyone on this Zoom call. As brave as he is in saying that, he said he wants to expand the Chamber's membership by 5%. Guess what? Before Terry leaves on May 30th, he said June, I don't know when in June, but May 30th, I'm going to call Terry and say, hey, Terry, did you hit your goal? Did you hit your 5%? Next week, I'm going to call Terry and say, hey, Terry, did you hit your 5% yet? The week after that, hey, Terry, did you hit your 5% yet? That's called being a nuisance. But at the same time, it's also accountability.
Accountability. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
That's accountability.
It's accountability. So find someone who is not going to be a nuisance to you, but will hold you accountable to your goal. I'll be honest, be very selective who you share your goals with. Because I've met many people who said, that's not going to happen. Are you crazy? Okay, fine. Scratch them off your list. Find somebody else to hold you accountable. okay? Because you want someone who's just not going to hold you accountable. But your system, your accountability system, is one that actually creates an environment so that you, as a human being, will help you achieve those goals and work with you to get those goals. So when Terry says he wants 5%, guess what I'm going to do? If you're not right now, if you're not a member of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, if you're a business owner on this call, or if you work for a company, can you please go back and ask the owner, or just go call Pauline and sign up to be a chamber member? Why not? Because if Terry, and this is the idea of sharing your goals. Here's an interesting story. How many of us sitting have kids? Just raise your hand. Okay, great. When your kids were younger, or even if you tell them, have you ever told your kid or made them a promise to say, hey, we're gonna go do something, and that something is whatever they like. For example, hey, we're gonna take you to Walt Disney uh, this summer. All right. Now, maybe under COVID, that's not going to happen. So let me change the example. Hey, we're going to go take you to Rita's ice cream. Guess what happens when you tell a child that let's go get some, we're going to take you some, get you some ice cream. What is the first question the child will always ask you?
When?
Perfect.
Are we there yet?
Perfect. Exactly. That's accountability. You told your child your goal is we all get ice cream. The person that you told will hold you accountable to it. Hey, when are we getting this ice cream? I need to know. Are we getting there yet? That's the kind of person you want for accountability. You want someone who's going to remind you, someone's going to work with you, and that's your accountability in your system and your process. It's also very specific, because what happens is, guess what? Now they're like, when, as Terry said, when. That's part of your SMART goal. When is this going to happen, Dad? Come on, man. Let's go. Let's get this done. Right? Have a friend like that. And I'm saying this because as we move through these webinars, you'll see the importance of having the proper people on your bus, or the proper people on your team, because the people on your team is very important to you and your company. Okay? When you tell someone your business goals and your life goals, that's a very serious thing, because that's part of who you are. And this is so important as to when you build your business from the ground up. So this is why I started off this first webinar with something it may sound simple and rudimentary, but it's so important towards your success when you have your business and when you're expanding and growing your business. It starts off with the basics. So set your goals very smartly, write them down, and create an accountability system or process as you put that together, especially during this pandemic session. I can tell you, the system and processes that we have prior to the shutdown was, I've talked to business owners back in March of last year who we worked on their financial projections for 2020. We started that in 2019. And I can tell you up front that some of my clients were in the restaurant and food industry sector. And March 15th, Washington, D.C. shut down. And as you know, D.C. is not a manufacturing city. It's a service city. Hotels, restaurants, clubs and bars and stuff like that. I had a lot of clients, maybe 3 or 4 clients who were related to the restaurant and food business industry. Hey, Eric, this is going to be tough. All of my clients who they work with shut down. So they went from looking at their financial projections in 2020 to a whole different mindset of what's my new goal? Their first goal was to survive. How do I feed my family? Right? So luckily, a lot of the business owners that I work with, they had a good system to rely on other people to help them get through the first, 5, 6, 7 months of this pandemic. Some businesses have failed. Some businesses, some of the owners I know, they've moved out of the area, just being honest. And some of them have just decided to shut down and do something different. But it starts off with understanding, how do you create your goal? How do you change your goal? Who's on your team to help you? What's the accountability system? Are my goals realistic? Are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they realistic? Are they time sensitive? Can we repeat them? Okay. So these are the basic things that we need to look at in developing our business. Any questions so far?
Yeah, just Eric, could you expound a little bit more on resetting goals and pivoting in this COVID environment? What do you see people? What's the most prominent challenge, I would say, that you see most small businesses have? Is it payroll? Is it inventory? What is their most prominent challenge, and how are they addressing it?
Sure. So just to restate your question to make sure I heard it correctly. So you're asking me what have I seen as one of the prominent challenges businesses had since last year in this COVID, in this pandemic situation, correct?
Correct.
Right. They're layered. The first challenge has been getting business owners to quickly realize what is happening. A reality check had to occur, because it was in the very beginning, we're only going to shut down for 2 weeks, if you remember correctly. And a lot of businesses were like, okay, we can live with that. We have a little bit of financing to get that done. We're going to have to give people 2 weeks vacation, things like that, but we're going to be back in 2 weeks. Well, it's been almost a year.
Right.
So it was layered. It was a process. It was, oh, holy cow, how do I deal with this? Reality check. And then getting business owners to make a quick decision to say, listen, this is the reality. We have to pivot. Now, once they pivoted, there was another set of realizations that had to occur. How are your business finances and goal setting? All right. And I'm glad you asked this question, because you reminded me of something, Terry. Pre-COVID, I would coach my clients and consult with my clients and organizations to say, you should have at least, at a minimum, 1/4 of your operational expenses as reserve. Okay. So if on a monthly basis, if you have a $10,000 of operational expenses as overhead, which includes salaries and benefits and wages and bills and all that kind of stuff, electricity and fuel, whatever your operational expenses are, have at least 1/4 of that, which is 3 months, have at least 1/4 of that saved up as reserve, as a cash reserve. So if your overhead expenses is $10,000 a month, you should have at least $30,000 in your bank account every year. So at the end of your first fiscal year, at least aim for getting $30,000 in your account. It may not happen, but that should be your and we're getting into projections. That's what you should have. So you should have that savings buffer. Now, as of last year, 2020, every client that I work with from here on out, I tell them a year. I said, have 1 year of operational expenses in your business savings account, and don't touch it. Do not touch it.
So, I mean, being that there's been business interruption, it's going to be difficult. At least I would imagine that it's difficult to get that kind of money when you're working with reduced income. Cash flow has been affected.
Yes. But again, we're talking about goal setting. So what we do is, we put that, and that's a great segue. What we do is we take those goals, once we've monetized the goals and we identify and monetize those goals, we build that goal into the business plan.
Okay.
So now when I talk to clients, it's, okay, here's your financial projection, excuse me. Here's your financial projection. And here is the financial goal. So it doesn't mean you're going to make that money in 1 year. It just means that this is your goal, and this is the goal for every year. And because of this. It's basically under the risk mitigation aspect of your business plan. And you mitigate that risk by looking at your financial projections and then executing that financial projection from budget to reality. And then being disciplined in taking that, for every dollar you earn, a certain percentage goes directly to a savings account. And that's the goal. And that's sort of like the attribution of the implementation of that goal. So you mentioned the funding, Terry, and of course, the PPP program really worked in the sense of providing temporary relief for business owners who had payroll, who had staff on payroll. The EIDL, as you know, was more for like realtors. You mentioned, let me see, Wanda Russell. You mentioned, Terry, you're also a real estate agent, business, real estate and transaction services. Yeah, a lot. I know a lot. I helped a lot of realtors strategize in terms of how to prepare for the EIDL, and then take that money and use it for what it's legally supposed to be used for. But at the same time, it's a loan. At that time, it was a loan. So the goal is, okay, you got that financial cover, great. The next step is going to be, what is the business strategy to pay that loan off? It's a loan at the time. And what do you do to increase your sales and marketing? Because even though we're in a pandemic, you're still in business. You still have to work. Unless you shut down, unless you choose to shut down, that was the pivoting part. Okay. So your goal went from 2019 to have a great 2020 to how the heck am I going to survive in 2020? And that to me was the first pivot that a lot of people aren't talking about. That was the first pivot that everyone had to do. And again, we saw that with the US government. The US government also had to pivot and say, holy cow, how are we going to deal with this? And we're not going to, the economic impact is all different. That's going to be in a different webinar down the road. But to answer your question, yeah, that's what we do. And then once you have that, as I have up here in the next slide, is you take those goals and you put them in your business plan. We convert that into your business plan, right? So the next step is to have your business plan ready for the next webinar, which is going to happen next week. So if you don't have a business plan, fair enough, that's fine. I get it. That's not a problem. But at least start thinking about your goals. Okay, now what's the plan of action? That's your business plan. Okay. And that's kind of where we are at this point is how do we create an environment within our companies to do what we do? And I just opened the chat window and let's see. Mr. Al Clark is an Aflac employee benefits professional. Yeah. So how have you pivoted? Well, actually, Alfred, how has the pandemic impacted your business, good or bad?
It slowed down. Our business is primarily working with small businesses to help them with, bringing on benefits for the employees, and so we're face to face most of the time. We would travel out and meet face to face with business owners. Well, when the pandemic hit, we had to pivot to all going almost totally online. And so we had to develop tools to do that and change how we engage with folks.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And like you said, you work with small businesses, so obviously you've seen the decline in small business in doing these things, correct?
That's correct, especially in the restaurant and service industries.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. In DC, I also do a lot of work with the Anacostia Economic Development Corporation. I'm the director for the Small Business Development Center there. And the data that we're seeing within the DC government is, the numbers in November, we were looking at economic numbers and the numbers were scary. 60% of restaurants were either going to be impacted in terms of close by December 31st and be out of business. They'll never reopen. The projection was over 60%. So those aren't, and again, these aren't the McDonald's, these aren't the the Chick-fil-A's, these are independent restaurant owners, okay? And which is a lot of restaurants in DC. And again, that's the primary sub-market, but then you also have secondary and tertiary businesses that are intertwined with those businesses. For example, like restaurant cleaning businesses. They focus on restaurant cleaning, and now they have no one to clean, because in DC, with all the restrictions that are happening, believe me, a lot of people are like, hey, we're out of here, we're done, we have to shut our doors. And like Alfred said, those are small businesses that are being impacted. And then we have Wanda Russell, who does event planning. Wow, how has COVID impact you, and how have you changed your goals based on event planning and what you do, and what have you seen out there?
Well, it has affected me. It's almost non-existent to go from 100 guests at an event to 10, but still having to pay for the inventory that I had on contract with another company. So it's been dramatic.
Yeah. How have you pivoted in terms of using the pandemic and for what your business is? How have you pivoted your business?
Well, I'm pivoting very slowly. I didn't respond quickly because I was kind of in disbelief. But what I started doing was to go just to try to hone my skills, because I know it's not gonna, it feels like it's gonna last forever, but it's not. It's gonna eventually open back up, and I wanna be ready when that happens. So basically I'm going through my inventory, making sure I have everything that I need. Instead of just going out doing events, I've kind of pivoted a little bit to renting out some of the inventory that I have, and even selling a small portion of it that I have.
Yeah, so you've actually pivoted in turning your business from an event planning business to a rental and sales of planning inventory of the business. So again, this is so important, because when we that wasn't one of your goals when you started your business, right?
No, it wasn't.
Exactly. And that's the point of actually setting up your goals. And I'm glad, I appreciate you mentioning that, was the unbelievability of what occurred. And we're hoping that things will sort of go back to some kind of normalcy. I don't think it will, not in the sense that it's a bad thing. I just think that this has actually shown the importance, I would say, of that word that's on the screen that says the business plan. A lot of businesses just simply weren't able to pivot because they weren't sure. They were so focused on, for example, this one thing, which is great, but then you have to learn your industry to move and shift quickly. And I'm glad you did one. I'm glad you're still in business. And there's a lot of different ideas that I'm sure in the event planning space that we can talk about in future webinars. But I've worked with some companies in the event planning space, and I know a lot of event planners in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and they've done some pretty interesting things. I can tell you that one company in Rockville, Maryland, it's a Hispanic company. They're doing the same thing you were doing, event planning. And they have a huge warehouse in Rockville, very big warehouse with all their stuff in there. And obviously, just like you, Wanda, they everything shut down. They had to pivot really quick, and they had to reset their goals. And I had a call with I had a conversation with the owner at a webinar event, and I know him pretty well. And what they did was really fascinating. They went from event planning. They took all their material that was plastic and hard plastic, and they created the face mask. Those plastic face masks that go down to your chin? They started manufacturing those face masks in their warehouse. And they actually made a lot of money in the beginning of the pandemic, in using their wares into that particular arena. So it was quite interesting to hear that story. And it was one of the success stories in the Hispanic community. So they're doing okay. They're still hurting, but it was a quick decision based on just being creative and looking at what they have. A lot like what you did. You were like, okay, I have stuff. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to rent it. And I'm going to do different things. And there's a lot of things like that people are doing. So yeah, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Hey Terry, you mentioned here that you're in businesses in real estate. How have you seen the impact of the real estate business based on what's going on?
Yeah, we've learned a lot in the real estate business. We're seeing how companies are pivoting, and particularly in like the retail and restaurant business. I was speaking with someone today who said that prior to the pandemic, they were kind of struggling with their restaurant business. But now with COVID, they've pivoted to a carry-out service. They don't need as much space now. People come in and they hand them their stuff through a window, and they keep it moving. So they've been very successful in pivoting their businesses. Other segments of commercial real estate that I'm engaged in, I'm finding that the industrial real estate market is stronger than it's ever been. And a lot of that is due in part to the fact that people are finding, they're using more e-commerce now. And e-commerce has generated the need for warehouse space, for storage space, and for staging space for trucks and things like that. So that aspect of the real estate business is booming. Office market has slowed down quite a bit. I think business owners have recognized that they don't need as much office space because they have these wonderful tools like we're using now, Zoom. So why spend money for big conference rooms and thousands of feet of thousand square feet of space. So it's just kind of been a mixed bag, but I think that overall, I would say that real estate is strong.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And again, to bring it back to the goal setting, that's exactly how you would want to approach it. Is to, your goals are personal, they are commingled and harmonized with your business life because, as I said, they go hand in hand. They're one thing. So what you do is you have to, again, look at the situation. As Wanda mentioned, and as Alfred mentioned, there are many businesses out there who actually panicked and in the beginning. And sometimes, when you panic, you don't make a decision and you have to reevaluate your goals. And sometimes we're not even there yet. And you got to make a quick decision and you got to move really quickly in this environment now. So with the pandemics, we're still under pandemic regulations. We're still under the global pandemic as we know it. We still have to reevaluate your goals. Bless you, Pauline. We still have to reevaluate your goals. As of just to give you an idea, when we talked about goal setting for businesses, I've had a lot of folks, we try to do quarterly planning. So it's like, okay, let's plan for the next quarter. Okay. And I've literally had business owners say, I'm not doing that anymore. I can't because I don't know what the next week is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in 7 to 8 days. Are the rules going to change? And these are from the restaurants. These are from the restaurants that we're working with. And a lot of other businesses have literally said, we will do goal setting, but we're only going to set goals 1 month in advance because of the current situation, because of the fluidity of what's happening. The current state of affairs, the change in government, things like that. These are realities that we have to look at, which impact our business goals, which impact our personal goals as well. For example, how many of us in here had travel ideas that we had to scrap from 2020 and even this year? Precisely. Lisa wasn't going anywhere. She was staying in Bowie. So she didn't raise her hand. She's staying at the BIC. So
To go to Beijing.
she's going to Beijing. Well, good luck. So the idea there is to look at the reality and how do we're talking a little bit about shifting and pivoting, but looking at the reality and then creating the environment so that we can reestablish our goals, but not our vision. Remember that it's a different thing. Okay. We just have to find a different way to achieve our vision through our daily goals. All right. So this is pretty much a chess game as we move through this particular pandemic. and especially under this COVID regulations. And we don't know, honestly, none of us know what's going to happen in the next few weeks or tomorrow for that reason. But from a business perspective, you have to fight through it. You have to stick focused on your goals. You have to. You don't have a choice. You have a choice. We're all responsible for ourselves, and we're all responsible for the people that we help and who we feed and who we make sure that they have a great environment to live in. So let's see. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So let's see my next slide. Yep. In conclusion, this went pretty fast, faster than I thought. Any final questions, any final comments, anything that I missed or anything that you would like for me to even focus on right now before we go to the Q&A section? Or this is your session, but to the next section?
Yeah, one thing that I would like to know, I saw the U.S. Chambers webinar, I think it was yesterday, maybe day before yesterday now. And it was, they talked about the new rollout of the PPP program and the SBA involvement in that. How do you see that being different from the last time around? And my question is that the last time around, when the money or the program became available, a lot of businesses that, here locally were scrambling to get their paperwork together. And by the time they got it together, the money was exhausted. So do you see that we're going to be in a better position now where we have more time to react to it? Will the timelines be more relaxed? And what should we be doing to prepare our businesses for this next round?
So here's the, I'm going to give you a long answer. The new PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, officially, we're waiting for additional guidance on that particular program. However, this round, yes, it's about the same as before. There are some changes in terms of, I think last year's PPP, I've understood that you don't have to file it as a revenue stream for this year when you file for your taxes. Now, here's the caveat. Please contact your CPA and your tax advisor to check the accuracy and validity of that particular statement, because I've heard yes and I've heard no. Okay, I've heard some of my CPA colleagues said, yeah, it'll be turned into a grant and you don't have to put it in your taxes. And I've heard some people say under certain circumstances. So I'm in a gray area myself and working with the CPAs that I knew in terms of that. So you definitely want to talk to your tax consultant. However, the EIDL program has been extended to the end of this year. Okay, so you can still apply for EIDL monies up until December 31st, 2021. The Payroll Protection Program, yes, it's open right now. You obviously have to have your paperwork in place. If I recall correctly, I think it's your profit and loss document. So you should be doing that anyway. Every quarter, you should have your profit and loss, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, and your income statement together. Have your taxes together. Business tax filings are due this year, I think March 15th as usual. So those are a few of the changes. Now, one of the things that I'll say is we have an SBA person, and remember I told you this section is one of 12 webinars coming up. We have an SBA person that's going to be doing the entire PPP and EIDL program. And I've worked with him before, worked with him for a few years, and he's on it. He's really good at what he does. And that's someone that we can ask those direct questions to, because I can pretty much guarantee you, by the time we get to that session, things will change. It'll definitely change. I can guarantee you that. In the meantime, though, I highly recommend get in touch with your CPA, get in touch with your tax advisor, and start, if you have employees, apply for the PPP. If you're looking for EIDL, go ahead and apply for the EIDL based on what your tax and CPA advises you on, okay?
Okay.
And to confirm if it's a grant or a loan, I do believe they're converting it to a grant that it's kind of like forgiven, quote unquote, but there's a process for it. Now, I also understood that that I think this is great news for the chamber, actually. A lot of chambers or a lot of 501Cs, and you could have a C3 or a C6 or a C5. A lot of the 501C blanks fill in the space were not eligible for last year's PPP, but I think this year I believe they extended that into the other C blanks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. They've extended it more, made it more available for certain nonprofits in terms of their tax structure.
That's
So
correct.
if you're a nonprofit, I guess the chamber is a nonprofit. If I'm
Yes, it is.
Okay, if you're a nonprofit, I don't know what your C blank is.
You're
Again,
C6.
you're a C. You're
So
C-
C6 is now eligible.
okay, good.
Checked it. It is eligible.
Okay, good. Good. Then go ahead and see if you guys can apply for that. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and see if you guys can start readying your paperwork to apply for that triple P. But remember, there's certain regulations you have to use. You're gonna get checked. I know Pauline's recording this. This is great. I love it. Keep it in perpetuity. I'm telling you. But it's being checked. I mean, you're not going to lend all that money out, and you're not going to have some kind of accountability. Remember, we talked about accountability for goal setting. There is some accountability because you hear the stories of people getting monies, and then all of a sudden, their businesses is hurting, and they have to lay people off, and they get PPP money, and they're cross country driving in a brand new car or something like that. I've heard the stories. We've seen the newspaper articles. You don't want that. So use the money as you legally supposed to use it. And that's that. Be safe. Just be, you don't want to have that come back to bite you next year or 2 years from now or 7 years from now. Just use the money for what it's for. It's to help your employees because they're the ones who are really getting laid off, and they're the ones who are taking a huge impact on the businesses. So let's just go from there. So any other questions or comments or anything that you would like for me to just maybe comment on right now, or maybe dive into a little bit more? I think Pauline has a question. She has that look in her face like she has a question. All right.
I think though, as we move through the seminars, these questions will be answered more in depthly. And that will be on helping each other pivot in the conversations that we have at the end of in conclusion of the webinar is what are we all doing to pivot? How is that working? Giving each other ideas because we're not living in a vacuum. And the only other thing I'd like to add is you're right, so right about writing down your goals. If we don't have a piece of paper to look at and see A, B, and C written down, sometimes we feel overwhelmed. But once we put it on paper, we go, oh, that's not so bad. That's achievable. It allows I think our brains to calm down and really focus. So you can be, again, right. If you don't write it down, it's nothing more than a dream. So. Yeah,
exactly. That's 100%. That's a great way of saying it. And those dreams can become nightmares. Those dreams can haunt you when you're like, oh my gosh, I did want to climb Mount Everest when I was young, and now I can't. It's a nightmare to you. So let's not do that.
It may, not to put you on the spot, but if you could give us a little teaser for next week.
Oh, I will. I definitely will. That's part of my conclusion. Thank you. Thank you for putting me on the spot there, Pauline. And there's something else that I want to, before I do that though, there's something else that you mentioned, Pauline, that was very important, was not just writing down your goal piece, but the community piece, okay? People like Wanda and Alfred and Terry and those folks who are in business, and it doesn't really matter if whatever profession you're in, the number one advice I gave to people back when we actually pivoted our webinars last year in 2020. We had in December of 2019, we had probably about a year of webinars for 2020. We normally plan them out in December. And last year, in 2020, we had a whole bunch of webinars for the whole year. And then in February, we pivoted. It was like, hey, let's switch to Zoom because we kind of know what's coming. Great. We changed everything. And this happened like in one phone call. In one phone call, they were like, Eric, what are we going to do? It's like, we lost. And I know I'm, with Wanda talking about event planning, trust me, I felt your pain because we had to cancel all of the locations across DC that we just say we can't do face-to-face. We see this thing coming and it's looking pretty bad. So we switched the webinars, we switched with the organization I was doing them with, we switched everything to Zoom. And we didn't miss a beat. We didn't miss a beat because we recognized what's happening. We didn't panic. And I never forget that call. It was on one phone call. And we just said, I was already on Zoom. I have a lot of clients who were on Zoom before 2019 and the years passed, but it was just a natural progression. So from an event planning perspective, and what Pauline is saying is very important from the community environment is go back to the people that you work with in the past. Leverage your relationships with each other, because that's what saved a lot of businesses. The restaurant community in DC, and I work with them. And actually I have just as a teaser coming up, thanks to Pauline, we have a professional chef who is going to give her webinar as one of the 12. And she's going to be talking about those experiences. And she's amazing. I've worked with her for 7 years now. She's amazing. And she's been on Chopped, the show Chopped. I think it's the Food Network. She was one of the contestants there. She's opened up restaurants in DC. She's a chef herself. She's a professional chef. She's a food industry consultant as well. And this is something that you go back to the people in your group. Remember that accountability process where you have the right people in your group that's really tight, and you go back to those people and say, hey, can we do something together? And that saved a lot of businesses. It saved a lot of companies. And you can tell the restaurant industry in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, they got together very informally and very quickly. They all helped each other out. And to me, just to see it happen was a beautiful thing, because it wasn't about competition. It was about co-opetition. How do we help each other out? How do we leverage my skill set with your skill set? How do we get together and fill those gaps and get things going? So Wanda and Alfred, when I hear about your businesses, I know insurance companies who are like, oh, wow, I'm going to team up with other insurance agents and we're going to put together a mass marketing. And that's what they did. Competing companies got together and did that as individuals. Wanda is the same thing. A lot of companies who are in that event planning space, they said, hey, you know what, why don't we do some co-marketing? Why don't we get together as a group, like form a small consortium? And they actually got together and got contracts to do events online using different systems overseas. They looked at English speaking and they had Spanish speakers and different languages, people who they could work with, and they leveraged those relationships within their network. You see, so build your network is very important. Your community is very important, and you want to build that. And that to me was a huge, one of the biggest difference in building your business and growing your business was doing that. So yeah, we're good. Pauline, thank you for mentioning that, because that triggered that thought, and that's a great thing moving forward in getting that done. So any questions or comments before I continue with the last part of the slides? So that was 2 teasers, Pauline. You got a whole bunch of teasers there. So okay. So finally, in conclusion, define your goals in the end. Just start from scratch. Start like at the 50,000 foot level. Define your goals. What do I want to do? How do I want to live? Especially in this pandemic situation. Okay. Believe me, your goals have changed. We've heard them change right now. We've heard businesses talk about it, and they've changed. So write those down. Use your SMART goals process. Go from there. Be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time, and don't forget my R. This is Williams R, my R. Repeatable. If you can do it once, you can do it again. All right. And again, write them down. There's a Harvard study that said, and I keep referencing that. I have it somewhere. If you guys want it, I'll give it to Pauline and she can share it with the group. The people who actually write their goals down and execute them and write them really good, they become very successful in what they're doing because that's accountability. Then you want to monetize your goal. So if you want to have, one of your goals is build your business to have your child go to college, private school, like Stephanie mentioned, at $160,000 a year, woof, that ain't Bowie State. Put a number down, put that number next to your goal and build your business to fund your life. I can't say it any other way. You're not in business for free, right? Hey, Terry, Terry's off. Let's see. Hey, Alfred, are you in business for free?
No.
Exactly. You got to make money, right? Exactly. So your business is what makes you money, but it's not the money. It's to fund your goal. It's to fund your personal goal. Okay. You don't have to make $100 million a year. You don't have to make $1 million a year. It doesn't matter. I don't really care what amount of money you make. The point is what matters to you as a business owner. That's the most important part. So you have to go after your goal. It's your goal. It's your company. It's your business, right? So go after it. Set that goal and find people to work around you. And then from there, we translate that goal into your business through the business planning process. So as a teaser, next week, we're going to be talking about your business plan. So before we move on, hey, Pauline, could you launch the last poll question for me, please?
One second.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I really want you guys to answer this question now, okay? As truthful as you were the last time.
Actually, you know what? I am sorry, but
Can-
I am having trouble doing this quickly.
Oh, okay, you just want to just relaunch the old one, and then we'll just answer question number
Yeah,
3.
I think that might be our best.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll just relaunch the question, the poll, and everyone will just answer question number 3. There we go. So I just want everyone to answer question number 3. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excellent, how would you now rate your goals? Now that we've gone through this process, how would you now rate your goals? Just answer question number 3.
It's grayed out. You may have to do all 3.
Oh, Pauline, did you hear that? Okay, I see what you're saying now, Stephanie. Okay. You have to answer 1, 2, and then the third one gets ungraded. Okay.
That was
Fair enough.
Wanda Rogers, so I can get credit for asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Wanda. Okay, this is actually great news. Okay, this is really excellent. And I'm looking at the poll results. This is really good because now this tells me, okay, that yep, there's the results. Thank you everyone for answering. This tells me that, why is it moving? This tells me that good, definitely an improvement on the outcome of, I'm looking at the results. No, I love this because this tells me that we've improved significantly the way we look at our goals and understanding the process of our goals. And my challenge to you for the next webinar is a couple of things. Keep improving, because this is about Kaizen, continuous improvement. Okay. Keep writing your goals. Keep making them with clear intent, using the SMART strategy. Write them down. That's the idea. Does everyone see the results? I'm just going to share the results. Okay. So I just shared the results, and I'm just going to scroll down to the third question. So I wrote it down. We've seen a pretty significant improvement, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to see improvement from webinar to webinar. That is what I'm looking for. So thank you for that. So, and finally, I really want to say thank you. And I really don't have any other questions, or if there's any other final comments anyone would like to ask. The one thing, again, I will ask you for is this. Next week, the next webinar is going to be same time, same bat channel, same place. And we would love to have everyone bring someone else. Invite a friend, a business owner, bring them to this webinar series. It's 12. The first section is 12, as I mentioned. And this webinar builds on the next one. Next week, we're going to be talking about some business planning. So if you have your business plan, bring it, write it down. If you don't, create one, okay? Or just have something ready so we can jump into. And that's it. I'm going to turn it back over to Pauline. Pauline, I want to say thank you for doing this. And I look forward to working on everyone's business plans next week.
Thank you, Eric, so much for spending time with us tonight. And I want to thank everybody here for taking time out of their busy evening and spending, gosh, almost 2 hours with us. And I look forward to seeing your faces next week. And I agree with Eric. Please bring a friend, spread the word. Just because the webinars build on each other doesn't mean you can't enter midway. So again, thank you so much.